starting, Adam. I think Adam is starting. Yeah. Let me call you back. Okay, bye. Yeah, in that V section right there. Look at that big bird rolling. All four run, right? Use that.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Vashtalos. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I've got a whole heck of a lot to talk to you today about, and that would be Grinding Gear Games' live reveal of Path of Exile 2 Early Access. The cheapest available entry is going to be $30. I wouldn't recommend anything else other than that for anybody new to the game. With that out of the way, I've reorganized a lot of the information that they've been dishing out lately to be a little bit more digestible. It's an opinion. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments as I get to talking here, but let's go ahead and get started, shall we? I'd like to start off with Gemcutting. Socketing gems and gear is gone now. It's a menu. You'll open up said menu, choose which skill you want to use in which row of sockets, and as you progress you'll unlock more support gems and then more sockets as well for those rows. Using a skill gem, which is a currency now, you'll find it and right click it. Upon doing so, you'll either be able to level up an existing skill or unlock a skill you have not yet earned. They'll be grayed out. Again, it's very intuitive. And then Ancestral Totems are returning. Path of Exile 1 had Ancestral Protector and Ancestral Warchief. They were problematic for melee because a lot of melee builds' power was baked into these skills' existence. But instead of being their own thing, in POE2, they will be a meta skill. Meta skills, the best example I can give you is in Path of Exile 1, there are things like Spell Totem support or Ballista Totem support. You would either give Spell Totem support a spell, or you would give Ballista Totem support a bow skill, and they would use those respectively instead of your character having to, right click every time you wanted to use a skill. You'd summon that totem and it would do it for you. However, I would like to note that they have not mentioned Spell Totem or Ballista Totem being a meta skill. They have only mentioned Ancestral Totems being a meta skill, so maybe Ballistas are like a singular skill rather than something you would put whatever you want into, and same goes for Spell Totems. Yet to be seen on that one. I couldn't really gather too much more information regarding that subject. Moving on though, all classes have a variety of persistent skills. You can think of these as auras or automatic effects, like on-death effects, such as if you kill something that has been ignited, it'll summon a raging spirit for you. It was a Path of Exile 1 very popular minion type, and deals fire damage. It's like a flaming skull. They're very powerful is their word choice, and in my opinion, they looked really cool too. So I'm excited to get my hands on some of these. They are acquired by using a spirit gem. In the same way that you would use a skill gem, you'll get it, right click it, and then choose through that gem cutting menu. Very, very nice. I love how streamlined they're making it sound in terms of just get it and go. There is no skill restriction, by the way. Any class can use any skill. Not much else to say other than if you want to see every single skill in the game, uncheck the box that says recommended within that gem cutting menu and feast your eyes on everything available to us on early access. Support gems. Right click and uncut support gem to open the menu of recommended support gems for skills you have unlocked. You can only have one of each support gem, so choose which skill it is used with wisely. These next few sections are really short and sweet. Flasks. Only one life and mana flask. About 6 uses each. They refill their charges by killing monsters, and there are going to be some shenanigans. They've put some thought into how players can still have fun with flasks, apparently. I was listening to the questions and answers section with Jonathan and Mark and Ziggy D, and they were talking about a unique item that apparently lets you get rid of that pesky mana flask for an additional life flask. Charms. Also use charges and are refilled by killing monsters. They protect against specific damage type or an ailment. Think poison, shock, ignite, freeze, so on and so forth. Upgrade your belt to unlock more charm sockets. There appears to be a maximum of 3 charm sockets. Block. I'm really excited to talk to you about this, and that would be because instead of being just like this numerical stat that you want 75 attack block and then 75% spell block, you will now have a stun meter attached to your block. You put on a shield, you press the button that raises it up, and then your stun meter will rise as you continue to block projectiles or attacks, and spells also fall into this category of blockable things. However, there are dangerous unblockable attacks and spells, I imagine, because they said that there will be indicators with a red highlight that lets you know you need to dodge out of the way instead of attempt to block it because it's unblockable. On a quick note, I would hope that there's some sort of like color coordination variance as to like what mechanic you're doing and like maybe what skill is even coming out and how dangerous it is. But that's probably asking for a whole lot. I'm happy with just having a red highlight to like, hey, you're in the danger zone, get the heck out of there. Next, I would also like to put a little bit of a highlight on, I don't know if dual wield block is still going to be a thing, right? So yet to be seen on that one, but very exciting that block is becoming this much more intuitive and like immersive thing in my opinion, because why wouldn't you be able to like block something if you've got a shield on? Why do you need like a number to enable that interaction? It's very satisfying. Like mentally, I find it extremely satisfying to think about it that way. As well as if that stun meter is broken, guys, you're pretty much dead. You become vulnerable, and it looks like you're just going to get comboed to oblivion. So make sure that you are using your stun meter wisely. Moving. All classes in Path of Exile 2 can be controlled with WASD movement on your keyboard. However, I'm hoping that they will allow the player to choose. If you want to use your mouse, you should be able to use your mouse. If you want to use your keyboard with WASD, you should be able to do that. If you want to use a controller by Bluetooth on your desktop, you should be able to do that. But it's early access, so I'm not confident in what my expectations should fall at. But as far as I'm aware, it's going to be a WASD kind of game. So fingers crossed that they allow the player to choose eventually. Weapon specialization. We can swap weapons on the fly. We have passive skills swap when you change weapons as well. It's very, very nice. I am expecting hybrid builds to become the norm, as it is almost a why not. You have a weapon swap, and I'm sure you will run into monsters that have resistances to whatever you have as your primary weapon, right? Because weapons also provide the skills in some cases. Weapon specialization points come from quests and the campaign. So you will get these as you naturally progress. It's very nice. Gold. Let's talk about gold real quick.
Yeah. You see, Mr. Powers, I love gold. The look of it, the taste of it, the smell of it, the texture.
Gambling for gear. That's one of the things you can do with gold. Basically, these notes are like, what can you do with gold? Respec passive points. You can buy gear from vendors, and their inventory resets as you level up. So be sure to go back to town after a level up and see if there's anything else that can help you progress. Currency exchange. So in Path of Exile 1, Settlers of Kalgur, they added the currency exchange. It isn't going anywhere. All currency other than gold can be traded. Spend gold to facilitate that transaction. Next up, I want to talk to you about items. There are 4 types of items in Path of Exile. Normal, magic, rare, and unique. There are going to be many new item base types. Some of the more notable ones are going to be crossbows, flails, and I think they're doing spears too, but I'm not quite sure on that one 100%. However, I'm sure they're going to be adding more in the future, as even in Path of Exile 1, they're adding more and more item base types, especially in Settlers of Kalgur. They added a whole bunch of them. Grinding Gear Games wants us to find currency on the ground and use them much more frequently to improve our gear as we progress. Their intended crafting process is you'll find a normal item, Orb of Transmutation it, you'll Augmentation Orb it, and then now that it's a magic item, Regal Orb it. That Regal Orb turns it into a rare, and with that rare item, you will Exalted Orb it 3 times. So slam on 3 modifiers with an Exalted Orb, and that is your finished item with 6 modifiers. It sounds like a very grassroots crafting process, and just so you know, essences and other sorts of things are still going to be in the game, so you can guarantee specific modifiers up to a certain point, but they're not going to be the on total like rolling over your item like Chaos Orbs or some of the higher tiers of essences seem to be in Path of Exile 1. You will bring unwanted items to the disenchant vendor. Magic items will disenchant into transmutation orbs. Rare items will disenchant into regal orbs, or probably shards. Sockets. Runes can be socketed into gear for additional stats, and there are more powerful things that you can socket into these as well, but I'm not really going to go over them here in the item section. I'll go over them later on in their more relevant location. Artificer orbs add sockets to your gear. Body armor and 2-hand weapons will have a maximum of 2 sockets naturally. Other armor pieces will have a maximum of 1 socket. However, you can corrupt these items to hopefully get some additional sockets, though there is a risk there. We've arrived at the passive skill tree section. massive, over 1,500 nodes. This is a swirling, undulating mass of information. All right, so I promise you it's simpler than it seems. There really aren't that many wrong choices at the start of the tree, according to them. So feel free to explore. You're going to be able to respec with gold anyways, so all you got to do is keep playing if you're not happy with the choice you recently made. Notables are more powerful than small passives. Go figure. It's pretty complicated, I know. But are more specific about what skills you should use, so be sure to read them instead of just blindly moving forward and thinking that bigger always means better. Attribute nodes let you choose which type of attribute you want. So in Path of Exile 1, you would have to path in a specific way with your passive tree in order to get the attributes that you needed, or at least make it an easier time than not. However, now they've made it so you select that attribute node and it just asks you, do you want intelligence, strength, or dexterity? It's really nice. Bravo, GGG. Couldn't have asked for something more simple. And explore the tree. Notables can work with all kinds of classes and skills despite their location, and classes can equip all sorts of weapons and different combinations as well. So you are not restrained in any way, shape, or form other than where your character is starting out from and the maximum amount of passive skills that you will eventually have. Keystones. These are big upsides with an equivalent downside. Builds must often change drastically to use these, but they're very rewarding. Examples given to us were Chaos Inoculation, Giant's Blood. This is a new one where you will manhandle a two-hander with a single hand, but it will have double attributes. This is known as Titan's Grip in World of Warcraft, but oh my goodness, I cannot wait to start playing with this keystone because it just sounds so cool. It's something that a lot of melee enjoyers, no matter what game you talk about, we kind of like fantasize over this because it's just really cool. You've got a gargantuan weapon, either a big shield or you're dual wielding those gargantuan weapons. Really, really excited for that one. Mind over Matter is a little different. All damage goes to mana first, but 50%, I think it's reduced mana regen, but it might also be 50% less mana regen. I don't have the exact wording for you on that one, just giving you some examples. Pain Attunement is also a little bit different from its predecessor. 30% more critical damage on low life, but it has some like strange wording. Just so you know, it's basically the exact same, but only for critical damage instead of all spell damage. But that also means a little bit more of a general application. Instead of just being for spells, you can use it for all critical damage. Powerful modifiers and powerful effects. You're going to have to feel around and see which ones you want. Many jewel sockets across the passive trees, so they're not going to be in any short supply. Plenty of unique jewels to discover. They didn't want to spoil anything for those unique jewels. At least not yet. Be sure to keep your eyes on the subreddits as they're constantly putting out teasers. And maybe your Discord of choice is also teasing information as it comes out. Let's talk about the campaign. 150 or so unique bosses, 400 plus monster types in early access. The game is about 80% there. Those were their words, not mine. There are only 3 acts for right now. 6 acts is their long-term goal. They're holding off on releasing acts 4 through 6 because they wanted to fine-tune the endgame. This was because a lot of people were actually concerned that the endgame wasn't either going to be there or just feel nothing like what we've come to love in Path of Exile 1. I think a lot of the concerns were completely unwarranted. They're clearly very aware of almost every player concern, and I would be shocked if the endgame was not about blasting in some way, shape, or form. Cruel difficulty will go away in time as the additional acts will replace it. This is what happened in Path of Exile 1. There was just a few acts, and then it was normal, cruel, and merciless. But instead, we are getting acts 1 through 3 for levels 1 through 45 most likely. You'll complete that short campaign and then go through it again on cruel difficulty for levels 45 through 65 most likely. Once done again, you'll complete and head towards the end game for levels 65 through 100. So I'm sure plans will change over time. Maybe we'll get a little bit more than just 6 acts. Maybe we'll get a bit less. The future is yet to be seen. Up next are Ascension Trials. Bye, Izaro. If you played Path of Exile 1, Izaro doesn't seem to be here anymore. Sad egg. Though, each trial is associated with a culture of raid class. 2 points per ascension, just like last time. Choose the trial you prefer to ascend with. So if you don't like Trial of the Mariketh, then go over to Trial of Chaos. And they made it sound like you can continue to progress through that singular trial. Maybe I had a little bit of a misunderstanding, but that's what it sounded like to me. But they also made it sound like you can mix and match. If you already did Trial of Chaos, you can go over to Trial of Mariketh. If you haven't caught on yet, those are the names of the 2 trials that they currently have planned for us. There will be more trials in the future. They made it sound like Trial of the Ancestors was one that they were trying to cook up for us in the near future. So let's start off with Trial of the Mariketh. Very Forbidden Sanctum-like. You're going to be progressing basically through the Forbidden Sanctum. Each room has its own challenges. There's monsters, there's traps. You can trade sacred water with the Djinn to receive boons. So exactly like the Forbidden Sanctum. Taking damage reduces your honor, which will result in failure once fully depleted. This is just like Resolve. I'm not sure how our defensive modifiers will interact with honor, whether it will interact with it at all, or have varying interactions like Energy Shield, Evasion, and Armor did. You will defeat the boss at the end, and there is a relic, just like in Sanctum, where it puts you into a no-hit run. So I think it's safe to say something like the original Sin will be in Path of Exile 2. If not the original Sin, probably something of equal or greater power. The next trial is the Trial of Chaos. Trial Master will offer you troubles before each room. You've got to select one in order to advance. He will also spawn hazards that you have to deal with while attempting these troubles. Risk versus reward is the theme of this trial. You can keep going, but be sure not to select things you can't handle. Challenges vary between survival, King of the Hill objectives, and then deathmatch between monsters. There's a boss at the end as well. Vol Orbs are a common reward. Vol Orbs can be used to add an enchanted implicit or add sockets to an item that exceed that natural limit. Vol Orbs can still brick your item, so be careful. Soul Cores are also offered occasionally. This is probably a rare reward from Trial of Chaos, and these are powerful things that you can socket into your gear. So absolutely you're probably going to want to farm some of these, as the modifiers looked a lot like notables. The final boss drops a key that leads to the chamber of the Trial Master. You can enter if you dare. Let's talk about some of the endgame mechanics. Atlas is infinite and expands in all directions. Waystones are the new maps. You put them into like these pyramid structures and they increase the tiers of difficulty of the nearby nodes. You can also craft them just like maps. 6 portals that you can go to or fro to loot, but if you die, the map is over and you've got to find a way around from that point on. To progress, you also have to kill all rare monsters and bosses to cleanse that area of corruption. Biomes are made by specific cultures that have targetable items. Most maps are restricted to specific biomes. There are parts of the Atlas that don't work. Maybe you can figure out how to fix that.
They've blown out one of our engines. Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. Fix it, fix it, fix it.
Towers reveal large areas to continue exploring when completed. Feed tablets to towers to increase the frequency or potency of your desired mechanics. Spend currency on tablets to craft their modifiers. Once given to a tower, it will affect the local area. Towers and tablets can overlap. I'm pretty sure there's a difference between a tower and the pyramid structure that's like actually affecting the difficulty of your maps. So a couple of radiuses happening here on the Atlas, and a lot of these radiuses are going to be overlapping. Corrupted areas have additional modifiers. So if you see an area that looks like it's being affected by some sort of unholy blight, probably going to be a little bit more difficult. Unique maps like Untainted Paradise still exist, but as mentioned before, they're going to be specifically tied to a unique biome. Secret special hideouts are also still here. I find that personally really exciting. I love collecting the secret hideouts and targeting 1 or 2 per league in Path of Exile 1. Certain areas may have indicators above them. An example they gave is there's probably going to be like a skull or like a boss symbol above a difficult boss area. But that difficult boss will also have increased loot. Atlas passive trees everywhere. Usually points are unlocked after defeating the relevant boss of that mechanic. And I'm not kidding. There's even a passive tree that you will unlock after beating the Pinnacle boss. So there's Ubers, and then there's something beyond that. And once you beat that, there's a passive tree that you can start working on. It's really funny, but also incredibly aspirational. I can't wait to see what some of those effects are. Increased difficulty levels also seem to exist for specific boss fights. So it's not just, peaches and cream the whole way. There's probably going to be a point where these bosses are truly Fearsome. Many Path of Exile League mechanics are receiving sequels. Nameless Seer, he's still here and he offers you a unique item just like before, but they made no mention of scrying maps for divination cards, so it might be safe to assume that scrying maps is a thing of the past in Path of Exile 2. Essences are still here. They can be used to upgrade your normal items with a guaranteed stat. They can be used to augment your magic items with an additional guaranteed stat, and then they can also be used to regal that magic item for a third and final guaranteed stat. Sounds very powerful, up to 3 guaranteed stats, most likely going to be part of that core crafting process come late game. Shrines now require the monsters around it to be slain for the buff to transfer, so they're no longer clickable. Don't go charging in there trying to get that buff. You got to kill everything around it first. Strong boxes, largely the same, but are now more of an encounter. It seems like fog rolls in, locks you in until you either kill all the monsters or vice versa, they kill you. Be sure to read those strongbox modifiers as well, since you're being locked in with them. I saw detonate nearby corpses, and that could be pretty tumultuous since you're stuck in a tight area. Breach got a revamp. All new monsters, bosses, progression, and rewards. Catalysts have been rolled into Breach. If you don't know what catalysts are, they are this currency that would drop, and you would increase a specific stat according to their description. Very powerful. You would want it on your rings, amulet, and belt. Breach rings are OP now. They have the ability to go up to 50% quality with those catalysts I just mentioned. And yeah, that is a glow up. No joke. Everybody's going to want a breach ring or at least one breach ring. Breach splinters are still here. They turn into a breach stone. That breach stone brings you to the timed event that once completed will bring you to Zesht, the pinnacle boss of Breach. And once you defeat Zesht, it will unlock some passive points for you in that Breach Atlas passive tree. Ritual Revamp. Boss is now King of the Mists. Build tribute by slaying monsters during the event. Spend tribute at the final ritual on various items. A range of unique items have been added to this mechanic. I find that really exciting because Ritual didn't really have anything all that special other than a couple of specific base types, like Blizzard Crown and some other things like the boots that let you start stacking accuracy for lightning damage. But I'm excited to see what some of these unique items they've imagined up are. So the maze is also still here for the King of the Mists encounter, but they didn't reveal if it's been changed. I think it's safe to assume that it's going to be a little bit different, and they want to leave that as a surprise for people encountering it. And defeating him will also grant you points for the ritual section of the Atlas tree. Delirium. Deeper you go, the harder it gets. Distilled emotions are now oils. Oils were from Blight previously, and you would use them to anoint your gear with different notables that were much too distant for you to acquire efficiently. And the same is true here. Distilled emotions, you're going to use them to anoint your amulet with distant notables, and you can use them to also anoint your maps for extra difficulty. Simulacrum works largely the same as it did in Path of Exile 1. Waves of difficulty, waves of monsters. I saw Omniphobia in one of the teasers, though my hope for this is that they finally added the real final boss of the Simulacrum, which should be the Trickster King, I think is what he's called. You know, the Delirium King, the guy who like taunts you in all of your maps in Path of Exile 1. I really hope that that's finally an encounter we can go through. Completing the Simulacrum grants points for the Delirium section of your Atlas tree. Expedition is up next. Dig up monsters and loot with explosives. What's not to like? On the ground, there's going to be some sticks popping up out of the ground with skulls on them. Those are the monsters that you can bring back from the dead, as well as some markers with like chest symbols, delirium symbols, breach, essence symbols, so on and so forth. League mechanics, right? And those will bring up chests that after you complete the encounter, you can right-click them, and they'll open up some additional loot for you on the ground. Logbooks are also sticking around, and they are basically an expedition-specific area that you can enter into, be provided with an exorbitant amount of explosives compared to normal, and create a much larger chain reaction for even more of all those varying types of loot. Super fun, and you need to be careful of remnants because remnants can easily brick your build through an assortment of modifiers, so absolutely, if you're putting that explosive down next to a remnant, make sure you are reading that modifier before you hit the plunger. Caves and pirates are apparently something that we're going to be able to expect moving forward with Expedition. Can't wait to explore that. Sounds like a nice little fantasy to attach to the Expedition journey. I don't know, maybe they'll work it into the lore. Ulroth is still the pinnacle fight, Knight of the Sun, or whatever he is, and once you defeat Ulroth, you will be provided some passive points for the respective Atlas tree, just like every other mechanic. New pinnacle fight! Well, a couple of new pinnacle fights, it sounds like, because there's an ancient, ominous structure, fortress maze, they used a couple of different words, on the Atlas that resembles the towers we use. This structure is surrounded by 3 factions that contain lieutenants and uber bosses. Kill all 3 of the uber bosses to gain their keys. If you fail against any of their lieutenants or the leaders, they will all move on and need to be found again. That sounds absolutely brutal. I am going to need some practice, and it sounds like it may take me a hot second to find them. Most likely, at least for my expectation, I think this fight is going to involve the Seed of Corruption once it's all grown up and properly fed. Just a hunch, but if I had to take a guess, seems like corruption is the main thing we're combating here in this rendition of Rayclast. Completing the entire encounter, Lieutenants, Uber, and Pinnacle all will grant points for that section of the Atlas tree. I thought that was really funny. It's like, you beat the game! Here's a passive point. So, I think that's just about everything I have for you guys today. I left out classes and ascendancies on purpose because I'm going to leave that for a video in the near future. Keep your eyes on the YouTube channel. Every like, comment, subscribe, view, sharing, it all goes an incredibly long way, and I really can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you'll tune in next time. Stay safe, stay excited, and I hope you're having fun on the way towards December 6th. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get in this game, guys. See you next time.